Hey everybody, welcome to the Modcast. Couple things today. I got a great email from somebody asking me to talk about or share my thoughts on the Otto Warmbier incident, the death of Otto Warmbier, and its handling from media sources on the left, and apparent contradictions or difficulties with the presentation of it from that particular end of the political spectrum. I want to do that, and then. I don't know if I'll do this in this video or another. There's an article from the Huffington Post that several people that I know and respect posted on social media, which as this example of what's going on, or of making clear their problems with the other end of the political spectrum, and it's fraught with errors and simplifications, and it's indicative, I think, of a lot of the dangers that we face right now. So I wanted to maybe hit on that too a bit. I'll put a link to the article in the comments below so you can see it for yourself. Otto Warmbier, for those of you who aren't familiar, student went to North Korea. I understand tried to take a propaganda post or something as a souvenir, was arrested, suffered for a long time in there, was returned, but died shortly thereafter owing to the horrific treatment he received at the hands of the North Koreans. This friend of mine who sent me an email asking me about this, she did such a good job. I mean, I feel like I might end up just paraphrasing what she said in her comments about it. She's very, very bright, and but you're good to go, kiddo. Trust me. Former student, so. But so the question, the handling on the left, there were people, including a professor from the University of Delaware, who essentially said that he got what he had coming to him, right? Got what he deserved. His parents are ultimately to blame for his growing up and thinking he could get away with whatever he wanted. Maybe in the U.S., where young, white, rich, clueless white males routinely get away with raping women. That's a quote from a professor at the University of Delaware. Outrageous. An outrageous statement, and as this person properly notes, where's the hypocrisy, right? On the one hand, you can't argue, and you can't argue that any woman deserves rape. The equation of stealing a poster with rape, that's the indifference that I was talking about, okay? The inability to see the difference. These are two very different things. Of course, no one's going to argue that, I mean, rape's never acceptable. Duh. I mean, it's obscene, and no matter what, okay? The understanding that no means no. That's just how it works, okay? Consent between two adults is everything. Without getting into that, the notion, though, that so the guy steals a poster in a North Korean country. He's guilty of stupidity, of a mistake, of an error in judgment when traveling. I can remember traveling in what was then East Germany, and being quite worried about everything I did. And it had been carefully explained to me that, they're going to trade you your marks straight up for their marks, even though the value's not even near comparable. Be respectful, of everything, even if you disagree. And being real worried about that. I only spent a day in East Berlin, traveled by train across East Germany. Left a very profound impact on me about the differences between communist and capitalist societies for various reasons. But, he did something stupid. And should punishment fit crime? I mean, that's another thing on the left. You're often trying to suggest that punishments should fit crimes, that everybody's capable of redemption, so that he deserves death for stealing a poster. Look, I have to struggle as a Christian with the idea that those who rape or molest children deserve death. I'm not supposed to have that in my faith system, but I struggle with that. I really do, because I feel like, and there's a difference between that crime, but the notion that somebody who stole a poster from anyone, anywhere, deserves death. Yeah, that's insanity. Okay. And remember, as I've said before, there's probably a few people, this professor at Delaware, I mean, the fact that they're still a professor, pretty ridiculous. Similar to the professor who, at Trinity University, was arguing, not Trinity College Dublin, but Trinity University here in the States, was arguing that or was posting tweets that said that they should have let Steve Scalise, the Republican senator, shot at softball practice or baseball practice, bleed out. He should die. I mean, incendiary. And I'm the first to tell you, in my classroom, I like to do confrontation. I owe this to a former mentor. Confrontation's more interesting than conversation, right? So if you get going, you want it. That's just to get ideas clashing, right? Because that's where stuff happens, on that edge where we're not comfortable, right? That's where we grow and learn. So I get that, but social media posts, things like that, especially in this day and age. Now, if someone does violence, I'm not going to say that professor's responsible. He has the right to do that. But if he's acting like an internet troll, right, is that the person you want teaching your class, right? If I use an internet troll statement to get students engaged, that's different than me posting it on social media, because there's context and the students understand, they know me and they know what I'm doing, to try and get that conversation started, right? As difficult as that conversation may be. So there's a difference there. But the question was about identity politics, right? And the way that, and there's a lot of studies on the hierarchy of oppressed peoples right now, right? Where are you located based on religion, sexual orientation, things like that. And that all comes back to the dynamics of power and to the question of indifference. The dynamics of power, in the sense, as I've talked about in other videos, that the oppressed and the oppressor, right? If your system of obtaining and maintaining power depends upon exploiting a sense of division of an oppressed and an oppressor, then you cannot allow for the solving of problems. You cannot allow for things to get better, because you need them to remain that way in order for you to maintain your power. If you consider race baiting figures, right? People who want systems of oppression to persist, because those persistence of those systems of oppression provide them with cannon fodder, with ammunition, I should say, excuse me, that allows them to exploit people and say, you're victims, you're oppressed, so that you will continue to go to them for leadership. I should say not leadership, you'll go to them for rulership. And that's a subject of another video. Rulership and leadership are two very different things. Leadership is involving teaching people how to be sovereigns in their own right, how to be autonomous. It's not about having them follow you because they're weak, which is what a lot of these systems are about. You need me to solve your problems and to fight your battles. That's what identity politics is about. You subdivide into groups, and based on difference, based on physical differences, perceived differences. And this is one of the great losses of a sense of the divine or of something bigger at work. It becomes much more difficult for us to see similarities with other people when we are obsessed with differences. This is one of the conflicts between reason and imagination. Imagination, as Shelley says, love enables us to go out of ourselves and perceive in something else, something like us, to feel that unity. That lets us get over these differences, these perceived differences, or perceptible differences, I should say. There's one fundamental difference, and that is that I'm not you and you're not me, and that we're all individuals. That's the absolute difference. But you can't tell it, right? You can't really articulate it, except to say I'm not you and you're not me, and we have to find a way to get along. Now we can use we use similarities, as I've mentioned, and we need things to make sense of the universe. And this is the balance of nationality, religious creed, that kind of thing. But difference is not the same thing as dissimilitude, right? In other words, identity politics suggests that there's an inherent evaluative difference between everything, that all difference is, one superior to another, that all difference is set up on a basis of ratios between things. One's better than another, hierarchical difference, as I call it. But not all difference is that way. In fact, absolute difference, the difference that can't be told, I'm not you, has no hierarchical value, right? It's not to say that one is superior than another. One second, be right back. So when we talk about identity politics, that's what you're talking about, is these differences that are used to maintain power. Yeah, you should see difference. But true critical thinking means seeing similarity where there's apparent difference, as I said previously, right? So it's that imaginative capacity to get out of yourself and see. I was talking to someone about this the other day. In teaching literature, we often have debates about what to teach, what to have kids read. We talk about it, and people say, "Oh, well, they need someone they can identify with." Again, students in my lit classes will have heard of this. Why? If you want someone you can identify with, spend your time in the mirror or obsess over your Facebook profile. Because the whole idea of imagination is to get out of yourself and see that someone else can experience the same things you experience. Or that there, but for the grace of God, or whatever, you could be experiencing what they experience. Two very different things. But those don't lend themselves to power. Because what that means is people start autonomously making choices and imagining and going out and meeting people and dealing with them in all of their complexity. And not simply adhering to identity politics, right? To group identification, or to suggest that, those things define you. And by the way, those groups are important, but they aren't all that we are, right? So your sexual identity is certainly not all that you are. It's not even the most important part of what you are, except the culture insists that it is because of the pervasiveness of sex and things like that. Any more than your ethnic persuasion is all that you are. Now, religion is a trickier one. That one you could make the case because it should inform everything that you do. There's no question about that. And if you don't believe that your particular religious system or system of belief is the best one to go through life, you need a new one. I mean, that's just, the best one for you to go through life with, right? Recognizing that other people have to come to that on their own, right? But these differences are significant. And identity politics suggests that difference is more important than similarity. And it doesn't want you to see similarity. It wants you to obsess on difference, which is what oppressive systems have done throughout the years. And again, it's crazy that on the far end of the left, you have identity politics, race politics being played. You can blame everything on white men, or the white Anglo-Saxon tradition, white Western males, as though the miseries of life weren't part and parcel for our existence. They are. Have white men been responsible for them sometimes? Yeah, so have other cultures. But you're talking about prejudice now, right? Where you're going to decide that all of these people are this way. And that leads to the other piece, which I'll get into probably next time, the article that I wanted to talk about. But on the Warmbier thing, yeah, it's absurd. It's absurd to suggest that he deserved that because he did something stupid, that he got what he deserved, and that it's his parents' fault. Look, again, this nation's built on the idea that you're not responsible for the sins of your parents. You're not, okay? But because his parents didn't do what? Discipline him enough? You're quite sure? How do you know he wasn't I mean, the presumption and insult leveled at the parents? You ask any parent, okay, who's raised kids, who raised the best kid in the world, they're still going to make stupid decisions from time to time. And adulthood is about knowing that and recognizing that we're not defined by our mistakes. We make them, and we have to learn from them. Given the opportunity, we will. But the idea that you deserve death for doing something stupid, wow. If that's the case, well, then there's a lot of people that deserve death, including me, and I don't know, because everyone's made stupid mistakes. And that he thought he'd get away with stealing a poster. His thinking he could get away with stealing a poster was because he grows up in a society where people of his class routinely get away with rape. Okay, now, we don't need to get into statistics and numbers on that, but to suggest that those two are the same thing, as I said, that's indifference. That's the inability to see difference. It's insanity. And insanity is a dangerous thing. That indifference, the inability to recognize. Here's someone who's obviously more interested in being right than they are in doing right. They're not willing to dig deep and consider the complexity and to recognize that they too could have made a stupid mistake. Maybe not that one, but I'm sure they have. And someone who's, again, far more interested in being right than doing right. And we know, as I say every time, it's much more important to do right than to be right. All right. Hit like, share, subscribe, pass it on. Have a good one. All right. Thanks for watching. Cheers.